Oh, Bill's gone.
What? Hello, I'm here.
No Bill.
I'm here.
Bill down. Bill down.
Let's roll.
Let's do this. Let's roll. So, in the last episode, Bill, I talked a little bit about my dog is a gender video.
Mm-hmm.
And just a quick item of follow-up I need to bring up, because I had a lot of criticisms leveled at me about that title in particular, and the fact that it was quite clickbaity. Having just said in the Patreon video that I endeavour to not make clickbait videos, so I think if these comments were coming from Artifexi fans and not just random people on the internet who come across the video, I feel the need to clarify this to make sure we're all just on the same page. My issue with clickbait, right? Clickbait in and of itself is not a bad thing, I don't think. Clickbait that leads to non-content is a bad thing, like BuzzFeed clickbait and things like that. But I personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a clickbaity title if that gets people in the door to learn about something cool. Like if you get them in the door and then make their days a little bit, better because of the thing that you've supplied to them, I think that's okay. And I think a master of this is Vsauce, whose videos historically have been really clickbaity. But it didn't matter because you got in the door and then you were kind of like, oh, I learned this cool thing about like infinities or these paradoxes or that sort of thing. So I just want to clarify that because a lot of people are kind of like, oh, clickbait, Edgar, I see, clickbait. So that's where I stand. Well, any thoughts?
I don't think it was a particularly clickbaity title. It was kind of like, what's this about? And then it gets explained at the end. I mean, I didn't think it was like, as you say, the BuzzFeed kind of clickbait, that just totally misrepresents a concept and exaggerates things entirely. The way you see with celebrity news sites kind of thing.
Yeah.
It didn't strike me that way.
Yeah, same. And I was actually kind of surprised that there was a bit of pushback for it. Because I do get that it's not a straightforward title. Like, it's not grammatical gender. And I was trying to, like, play with the idea of what grammatical gender was a bit. But I just want to clarify. I'm not doing the BuzzFeed thing. And if I ever do make a video that has zero content and has a clickbait title stuck on the front, then please do call me out and unsubscribe and never listen to me again, because that's just the death of a content creator, I think.
Well, maybe that's a little harsh for the first offense.
Oh, no, I think this is a one offense and you're out. I mean, like, because you have to make a conscious decision not to have content. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to consciously decide, I'm going to make this is going to contain zero information and I'm going to put a clickbait title on it. Like, that's, I'm going to hold myself to a one offense standard there.
Fair enough.
Good. That is all I have to follow up from the last time, outside of emails and Reddit. Have you got anything, or should we crack into the mailroom?
Let's crack into the mailroom.
Let's do it. All right, emails.
Okay, well, we've got one here from Rhea Newton.
I think it's Rhea. I think Rhea wrote in before.
Well, they say long-time listener, first-time feedbacker.
Why do I know that name? I think Rhea might be a patron?
Or, yeah, maybe interacted with them on Patreon or YouTube or something.
This is really weird talking about Rhea as, like, they're probably listening. And we're like, who is this Rhea? It's a very weird dynamic when you have like an audience of people and you talk about them and you don't know them like corporeally, but you know them, and it's endlessly fascinating and strange to me. It's crazy. Anyhow, so they got an email. What was the email about?
So it was to follow up on what we said in the last episode about grammatical gender influencing worldview, and it said at one point you spoke about how speakers of gendered languages don't tend to think of the objects themselves as belonging to its grammatical gender. However, while they may not do it consciously, grammatical gender actually does influence the way people are likely to see certain objects through association, at least subconsciously. And this is something that I've come across before. This ties in with the whole field of linguistic relativity, that our language in some way influences our cognition. And this is something I was very, very interested in for a long time. In the last while, I've discovered that it's not really taken seriously by a lot of linguists for, I don't know, whatever reason. So I had been under the impression that it wasn't really, a viable hypothesis, and that these studies, which I had been familiar with before, weren't really considered that legit anymore. Now, I haven't got the explanation to back that up. I'm not a linguist. I just know some linguistic-y things. But it is definitely a concept that is out there. I'm not an expert, so it's quite likely that I'm wrong in this, but I had been under the impression that it wasn't a well-regarded theory at the moment. But there are articles and studies out there. We could probably put some of them in the show notes or something. Like, it's something that makes a lot of intuitive sense to me, that the way you think would influence the way you speak, the languages you speak would influence your thought. Because I think very verbally. Like, most of the time, I think in words and in language.
Yeah. That is what I was kind of getting at in a bad way in the last episode. Like, the idea that German speakers, like, they don't, to use German as an example here, they don't view a dog as being inherently masculine, but I think they can't help but view the dog as being associated with other masculine words. You know what I mean? Like, they come in one group.
And they attribute elements of masculinity to it, the dog.
No. That bit I disagree with. I don't think they do that. I just think...
Well, that's what these studies suggest.
Right, but I think the idea of the association thing, for me, is the thing that I feel intuitively is going on with gendered languages. Like, you have a group of objects that are, like, let's say masculine, but it can be anything. I can't imagine a world in which speakers of such a language wouldn't, at least subconsciously, group them together and associate them. Not necessarily engender them, like, not necessarily give them genders, but just go like, oh yeah, that's a dog. That's in the same category as a door or a lamp. You know, like, I can't see that there is a disconnect between gender and thought. Like, I'm not willing to accept that there cannot be any links at all, you know? But I fully take your point about how, like, I can easily see how it's how these studies could be not legit, because there's so much like nature versus nurture thing going on there, you know? There's so much about, like, how you grow up, what your social interactions are with people as you grow up to inform how you view the world. Like, it's really hard to, like, pin this stuff down. But I don't know, it's a fascinating one, and I think the one thing to do here would be to ask people who are listening, who speak gendered languages or languages in downclass, and to ask them what they think. Like, that's the clear and obvious thing. Like an actual case study from people who do this. Because I'm not a good example here, because I barely speak German. So if there's any fluent speakers,
I barely speak Irish.
Oh yeah, Irish has genders, doesn't it?
It does.
How many?
Two.
What's are they masculine, feminine?
Yeah.
Oh.
So Fear and Chinook and Ban and Chinook, yeah, masculine and feminine. I don't think there's a neuter gender.
So hang on, how does the gender manifest itself in Irish?
It'll be things like how the initial mutations work. Like feminine nouns will mutate a certain way after prepositions, and masculine nouns will mutate a different way after certain prepositions. Things like that. And it's relevant to possession as well. Like, let me think of an example here. So the particle or whatever for possession for both genders is a. So say you're saying his mother, it would be a wahir, and mahir is the noun for mother. So his mother is a wahir, but her mother is a mahir. That's an example. It doesn't mutate after her. And then it does the opposite with nouns that begin with vowels. So his father is a aher, and her father is a haher.
Oh.
So one mutates for consonants and the other mutates for vowels.
Do you know what's mad, Bill?
What's that?
Like, I took a little bit of French in school, and obviously I speak a little bit of German, and like the amount of time you spend talking about the gender system in these languages is extreme. You know, like every time you encounter a new word, there's always a discussion about gender for obvious reasons. But it's mad that in Irish class, like, and we both took Irish for like what, 12 years more of
about that, yeah.
Yeah, of our life. And I don't actually ever remember having a discussion about gender in school in Irish, like never.
No.
Yeah, which is mental, because if it's a gendered language, you talk about it like, but it never happened. I don't know, it's very weird.
Yeah, I don't think it's the syllabuses are particularly good, to be honest, at the moment. The first time I ever really explicitly thought about it was about a year ago when I was doing an evening course.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
There's a damning indictment on the education system.
No one ever told me how many cases there were either. I had to ask my teacher on my course last year, who actually had to think about it because she was a native speaker and wasn't used to thinking in those kind of grammatical terms. And also, it turns out that it's kind of a hard question to answer for Irish.
Oh, well, I was just about to ask, how many cases are
there? Well, the nominative and the accusative merge, so there's no distinction between them. Like the nouns don't change, so it's like English in that respect. There's the genitive case, which anyone who ever took Irish will know from teachers repeating the word Tishal Ginnadoch without ever actually explaining what that means. I'm sure you're familiar with that, Edgar.
I am.
There's the vocative case.
We have a vocative case?
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, so, so if you want to call your friend Sean, you'd say, Sean.
No, yeah.
Yeah, you...
Oh,
I can never remember whether it's lenition or eclipses. I can only remember the phrase in Irish. You put a shevu after on the first consonant. If it starts with consonant. Yeah.
That's mad.
And then there's a dative case sometimes.
There's a dative case
only some words still have dative cases, like have the dative case, and it exists in some specific phrases. So, for example, Éireann is the dative case of Éire.
That being Ireland.
That being the name of Ireland, yeah. And it comes up for some body parts and things, like love and cuss, which is hand or arm, and leg, have dative case inflections. And you get it in phrases like os cion, which means overhead, cion being the dative of cian, meaning head. But you don't use cion in other situations that would call for the dative case.
Okay,
it's
so
only in that phrase, kind of.
It has a vestigial dative case.
Yeah. It's disappearing, essentially.
Okay. That's very apt, along with the entire language. I'm sorry, Irish speakers.
Boo.
I'm really sorry.
Boo.
For the record, though, I'm not for the disappearing of Irish, like, at all. Just want to put that on record. I think it's really sad.
That's good.
And yeah, I wish it was taught better in school. I hate to say that because so many people. I'm going to make a call about people here, and it might offend people, but I'm just going to do it. I'm going to cut it if needs be. I think a lot of people chalk down their lack of academic achievements to poor tutelage, when really it can be a case of just laziness. You know, like, I would have done so well had I been taught properly. And it's like, well, maybe you were taught fine, but maybe you just didn't want to put in the time studying and things like that. But I think in Irish there's a real sense that like the way it's taught is just very poor. Like, I remember in school, like, it's just the difference between Irish lessons and German or French lessons were marked in their difference. Like, it was chalk and cheese. Like, they were not the same. Structurally and things like that. And I think that really hurts the Irish language. And it just makes people like me, like in school, I resented the Irish language because it was this painful slog of a 40-minute session every day. And I hated it so much, where that animosity did not exist for my 1 year of French and for my entire career in speaking German. Like, it was just like, whatever. It's good. It's fine. It's just another language. So they need to change that. Otherwise, Irish will truly die, and that's poor.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, tangent alert. Will we do some Reddit?
We'll do some Reddit.
Okay, so I have a thing to correct from that was brought up in the Reddit from the last show. Remember we spoke about the coat of arms, the rules.
I do.
The heraldic rules. I was paraphrasing the wall of text in it. I mean that in a good way. The good wall of text we got from NGTJA. Was that the name?
Yep.
Yeah, they were saying that we should mention that these rules are specific to Finnish heraldry, and that Finnish heraldry is often seen as being quite restrictive and things like that. And they left a big post, which I'll probably put in the show notes so people go check out. So yeah, that is not like the universal laws of heraldry. It's the laws of Finnish heraldry. I still really like them. I still think that they could be applied really well universally, but just to be 100% clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing, the important thing, the big thing, Bill, I mentioned in the subreddit that I would really like to see a Artifexian coat of arms.
Okay.
And I was going to post on r/heraldry and be like, hey, does anyone want to do this? But then I felt really bad because it's kind of like, hey, does anyone want to give up their free time and just want to make this stuff for me? Thanks, that sort of thing. So I was kind of like, I don't know if I can just go to a whole bunch of strangers and be like, hey, do you want to do this? So I want to put on the show, if anyone's interested in heraldry and anyone kind of does heraldry as sort of a hobby, would you be interested in creating a coat of arms for the show or the Artifexian brand, to use Bill's terms, in a broader sense? And if we get a couple of entries, and if we pick one that me and you like, I will be willing to pay for this work. Bill and I, just off recording, we talked about the importance of like not abusing the goodwill of people, like, you know, free working for free and things like that. And it's important, you know, to like put your money where your mouth is and things like that. So I am intensely interested in the idea of an Artifexian coat of arms, so much so that the wallet will be opened if this can be made a reality. So I want to put it out there. Like, leave me something on the Reddit or an email, and I'll get in contact with you. We'll sort it out. Yeah, I really want this to happen. What do you think, Bill? Sorry, I kind of didn't run this by you at all. I'm just really excited about it. So do you want to?
No, just drop that bombshell on me. Why don't you? Yeah, no, that's a cool idea. I don't know how you usually go about commissioning arms from artists, but I'm sure this is a legit way to do it. And also, if people are going to be, like, will people be like doing up something and submitting it to us, and then, like, if we like it, they'll get the money. So will people still be, you know, expending labor? Yeah,
we don't have
without recompense.
Yeah, we don't have the budget to pay for drafts.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I was going to ask you off air was, like, how about we sacrifice 1 month of the Patreon to give to the person, which isn't a lot, but it's 100% of the budget allocated for this show.
And that is explicitly what the Patreon is for. Like, we did say that when we set it up, that it would be used to commission art and things like that.
And also, I just want to put it out there, there may or may not be the chance of potential Artifexian coat of arm t-shirts at some stage. You never know, like. But yeah, so I suppose explicitly, yeah, it would be like, we if it's okay with Bill, and we'll talk about this further off air.
Can you put the arms? Can you put arms on t-shirts?
Man, you can put anything on a t-shirt. You just submit a PNG.
Is it not a bit gauche though?
Is it a gauche? What's a gauche?
Is it not a bit gauche?
What's a gauche? I don't know what gauche is.
No, gauche is like tacky.
Is it not a bit? Well, I don't know. Is this?
I don't know. It seems. I don't know. Maybe.
Man,
well, I suppose you get the Hogwarts coat of arms and lots of things, so maybe not.
Like, if people who are into heraldry go to a heraldry convention and there's merchandise available, like, surely there would be t-shirts and hoodies and things like that. Like, no one's going to purchase like a full-blown medieval shield to display their heraldry. Well, it's posters, I suppose.
I don't think you can even put those on Redbubble.
Redbubble? What's with all the terms I don't understand today, Bill?
Redbubble is a site to sell merchandise on.
All right. Oh, I didn't know that this site existed. Huh. There you go. Anyhow. So, sorry, to just outline the rules of engagement one more time. We are willing to give 1 month of the Patreon to the winner, so to speak. Oh, I hate saying it like that. But like the person that we think has come up with a really great design.
Mm-hmm.
One caveat: you need to be over 18. Because it's a little bit difficult to pay people who are under 18. I have found this out recently.
Really?
Yeah, well, because as far as what I've come to learn is that under 18-year-olds can't have PayPals.
Oh.
And it's difficult to PayPal people money then. And then there's the weird thing about being like, can I have your bank details? 16-year-old. You know, it's a very weird dynamic.
Yeah.
It's just like, so.
And there's those pesky child labour laws.
There is the child labour law. So, I mean, over 18 would be ideal. Otherwise, we're going to have to come up with some way of trying to give you money and not being put in jail for it. So I really hope someone's able to do this, because ever since this popped into my head last month, I swear to God, I've been thinking about this so much. And I've been like, oh my God, an actual coat of arms. This would be amazing. I really hope it happens. Please, internet, make my dreams come true. All right, and that is all I have to say about Reddit. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think I've got any Reddit feedback, no.
That is an amazingly short follow-up section, and to ensure that it stays short, do you want to move into the writer room?
Especially since, like, a good 5 minutes of it was tangent with Irish grammar. Yes, let's move into the writer's room. The god Vasa came to the planet thousands of years ago, when the stars were still young. In their mouth they carried the spark of life. Taking a handful of salt from the Great Bite and a handful of ice from the world's dome, they spat out the spark, and around it they shaped the first humanity. Vasa taught these humans of the world. The god gave their creations the gifts of magic and of masonry, of where to find water in the wastes, what foods to eat and what foods to shun, and of the laws of kinship and warfare to govern the nations. Vasa placed the human tribes in the canyon lands, where the great arms of the Ketyen and Orlen meet above the Great Bite. The god then lay down to sleep and gave their name to the planet they had so blessed. The great migrations brought these human nations forth into the world. The people of Beren and the people of Amger travelled west into Ketyen, and here they settled. The people of Hoban and the people of Saratka travelled east and north into Orlen, and here they settled. The people of Chamoy stayed settled in the canyon lands. The lesser tribe of the people of Kamaras struck far to the east and settled in the lands around and below the eastern ridge. Here too settled the people of Godin, children of the Hoban. The lesser tribe of the people of Fenakba travelled south to the edges of the Great Bite. As they migrated, the Fasathi waged petty wars and struggled over water and shade, and food ever was scarce. The Harpies of Amtlar, horrid creatures in the shape of winged humans, but yet not of Vasa, ranged forth from their mountain fastness to prey on the humans of Fasath. To this day these beasts yet stalk and harry humanity. Though through this trial and many other, the harsh land and burning sun took its toll on the people of Fasath. The deepest desert oases and the least patches of shaded rock are inhabited by we who overcame this planet. Here these tribes made their homelands, but humanity of all nations may be found in all the lands of Fasath. The nomadic Beni too roam the wastes, traders and wanderers who, alone of all the humanity in Fasath, are not of Vasa and have no homeland here. The last great migration took place 20 generations past, when the people of Duare, children of the Chamoy, set forth from the canyon lands on a religious crusade. They marched the length of Orlan, around the great northern range in the world's dome, in search of a new homeland deep in the planet's unforgiving far quarter. After many generations of prospecting and toil, they founded the garden city of Ilki and dug the great polar canal to feed its many marvelous fields and farms.
Nicely done. That was really well read live.
Thank you.
I would never be able to do that. It would be verbal diarrhea all over the show.
I practiced it once or twice last night.
Oh, you practiced for the show. Oh, Bill, that means so much.
Of course I did.
Artifexia will love you even more than they already do. 10 points to Bill.
10 points to House Bill.
10 points to House Bill. Cool. So you did a creation story.
Yeah, I did a kind of a creation myth and, like an account of the different peoples of Fasath, which is the desert planet that I detailed a few episodes ago.
I remember this from the Harpies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why do the creation myth now?
It's been something that's been in my mind to do for a while. And it helped me, having to sit down and actually do it helped me solidify things like the names of people and their interactions. Like I always had it in my mind that the people who founded Ilki were from kind of far away and that they went there on a kind of a religious crusade or something, and that it's good to have that down on record now.
Okay, so I have a question about these people.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like some of the people you mentioned are, quote, of Vasa.
Yeah.
And some of them are not.
Yeah.
What does this mean?
So, the people of Vasa are the tribes created by Vasa, by the god, when the god came to the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them aren't.
Right. Okay. But all right. Okay. Are we? Oh wait, hang on. What world are we in here? Are we in Janspar or Handwavia?
So this is Fasath, which I haven't explicitly said before, but I've given all the hints that this is in the Handwavia setting. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is the desert planet from the Handwavia setting.
So this means Artifexia that we may get answers for Bill today. Oh, what a glorious day! When you say they're not of Vasa, does that mean that they've just bred so much that they are no longer of that lineage, so to speak, or are they like aliens that have come from different planets?
Well, the Binni are human.
Right, but
they are human, but they're not created. They're not humans that were created by Vasa.
All right. Okay, so you have similar species, but one have been created by a god and the other ones haven't.
Bear in mind this is a creation myth, and as such, could be allegorical or metaphorical.
Oh, is it a bit racist? Is the writer a bit racist? No, okay, they're not kind of like
they're referring to a real thing.
No, the words are so confusing. A real thing in universe, real thing, or a real thing like in creation?
A real thing in universe. Like they're not just like making this arbitrary distinction that the Binni are not of Vasa for some kind of bigoted reason. It's referring to there is a good in universe reason for it. They are not of Vasa.
Are they of another god?
Yeah, I guess.
Even when you can talk freely about something?
There is an answer to this out there somewhere. There are like a significant clue to this is out there and stuff I've already talked about on the podcast.
On the podcast?
Yeah.
Okay, so hang on. What did we talk about Handwavia on the podcast? We talked about the last thing we talked about was the top down polar map.
That's Facade. Yeah,
that's Facade, and we talked about like the harpy raids and things like that.
Yeah, it wasn't in that episode.
What else did we talk about Handwavia? I can only remember lots of Janspar.
Well, what was in Janspar?
What do you mean? Like the Conqueror guy? He was in Janspar. The Sun Tears were in Janspar.
Yeah. Which Conqueror guy?
What's Amulan?
Oh yeah.
We had the sort of what I thought was the Native American people, or were they in Handwavia?
They were in Handwavia.
In Handwavia. Okay. What? Is there anything? I'm gonna have to read your stuff again. All right. We're gonna have to go to Bill's blog. We all have to go to Bill's blog. This is a cunning ploy by Bill to get the viewership numbers up on his blog. Are you running ads on your blog?
Yes, I've monetized my Tumblr that I post on every 3 months.
Yeah, you see, it's all just a big coy. Bill doesn't really care about this in-universe sort of malark. Bill just wants them internet dollars.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, the Bini they're human as well, but they have a separate origin to the other tribes of Fasath.
That's actually quite a cool take, given that like creation myths here are just like, you know, we're all just created by the one creator. It's kind of cool that like you have different sentient species who have different genesises. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
The man, there's a lot of names going on.
Yes.
A lot of names going on. And I think, you know, every so often you hear people who don't read fantasy literature and they're kind of like, I don't like it because of the amount of names. And I'm always like, that's nonsense. Will you stop? It's grand. But every so often you're reminded of this. And I think this is one of these cases. This is not a bad thing at all. I think it's just probably a flaw of the genre in which we create in. But sometimes, yeah, the need to name everything can make stuff very dense.
Yeah.
And there's no way around that. You've alleviated some of that by like having like the Hobin and then their children being the Gobin. Godin. And it kind of sounds related, so there's less mental burden going on there. So that's not too bad.
And by the nature of the kind of document this is, it's the story of the planet as told by some guy. It's not an actual story narrative to sit down and read.
Yeah. It's like the Bible.
It would be in like it would be like in an oral tradition kind of thing. So it's not like an actual story as such.
Bill, did you ever attempt to read the Bible by any chance?
Bits of it, yeah.
So you know, I'm like a completionist, and I like my completionism. Was like, I am going to sit down and I'm going to read this thing.
I remember.
Oh, were we friends at the time? Oh.
Yeah, it's when you were in college.
Yeah, I remember doing a good bit of reading on the train, commuting to and from college on a weekly basis. And I remember getting to the long genealogy lists and just being like, this is torturous. Like, and that is no comment on religion or Christianity or anything. Just literally as a piece of prose, it was so hard to parse. And at the same time, I was trying to like critically engage with it. Like, I wasn't just reading it emptily. It was kind of like, okay, so this guy, he lived for like 900 years. And then he had these two. And then who are they? And where did they go? And what did they do? And there's just so much stuff going on that it's very dense. It's very, very hard to let it all sink in, which is a shame because I actually really like to say that I've read the entirety of the Bible. That would be a cool thing to be able to say, but it's just really difficult.
There's bits of it that I'd like to read properly, like the Judges and the Kings and stuff. They just sound kind of badass.
What's in Judges and Kings? Is Judges and Kings New Testament or Old Testament?
Old Testament. Judges and Kings is all like the wars of the Israelites and the kings and the stuff that they got up to. Judges were like military leaders.
Oh.
And like the Battle of Jericho and stuff was in Judges, I think.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Not the long genealogies. They're not fun. But anyway, sorry, we don't want to make this the religious episode. I've one final question. About your piece of prose. I want clarification over the Great Migrations. So Vasa, this god, comes, creates humanity, goes to sleep, and humanity just does its own sort of jazz. And then you say the Great Migrations brought these human nations forth into the world. But didn't the god bring the human nations forth into the world? Like, what's going on there?
Sorry, yeah, I don't mean brought them forth as in created them. I mean brought them forth as in they traveled into the wider world.
Oh, okay. Oh, so the Great Migrations were literally just migrations. Like, they were created and then they all just spread and did their own thing.
Yeah, so the homeland is, like, the people were created. Actually, did I say that explicitly? Maybe that kind of got lost in editing. No, they were created in the Canyonlands.
Yeah.
Is kind of the traditional homeland of humanity on Fasath. And then the Great Migrations is when the nations went out into the world and traveled around the place and found their own individual homelands.
Okay, that makes sense. Sorry,
I could probably change the grammar of that a little, but yeah, that's a fair point.
Cool. Now, so do you have anything else to add? Anything that I haven't picked apart that you think is pertinent?
No, I don't think so. Again, I've only really addressed the northern part of Fasath in this. And I acknowledged in the last thing that there are people in the south of Fasath, which I should probably incorporate into this creation myth somehow, because the two hemispheres are aware of each other. But I'm not sure exactly how to do that in this context. And I haven't worked out all the details of the southern part yet either. But I do know that the people in the south are not of Vassar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all right. Okay. Well, does that mean that the what do you call the Bonin?
The Binni.
The Binni. Are they Southerners?
No, they're not.
Okay.
So they're not from the south of Fasath.
Okay, so those of Vassar, all in the south, are not of Vassar.
Mm-hmm.
But not everyone who is not of Vassar is in the south. If you get what I mean. Yeah, okay, right. Okay, fine, cool. Okay, cool, we got that.
What else? Yeah, and as I say here, these homelands that I've listed aren't absolute. So it's not like all of the Chimoy will be in the Canyon lands, or you'll only find the people of Baren in the Western Canyon. It's just that's kind of their homelands. But, the history has been long enough that you will find communities of any of the people all over the Northern Hemisphere.
A good world builder deals in a little bit of vagueness. And absolutes, only Sith deal in absolutes. So I commend your decision there, Bill.
And I didn't note this, I couldn't work this in, but around the world's dome in the northern part is actually mostly people of Amgar.
Okay.
That's not relevant to anything, but that's just a fact that I wanted to put in there as well.
Again, as arbiter of the canon, right? Like, you are like the radio version of George Lucas, right? Who just puts stuff out there, and then people will run with it eventually. In many, many, many thousands of years, Bill, when both you and I are no longer of this world, right? Someone will pick up...
When we will have ascended to a higher plane of existence, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Someone will find the relics of this recording and will piece together all your stories, thinking that it is an account of what Earth was like back in the day. So... So you need to just drop everything you need to drop to give future nerds fodder to go with,
Wait, there used to be extra planets?
Yeah, who knows? Like, creation stories are usually a little bit crazy. So, I mean, but yeah, on some of the creation stories, do you have two questions. Do you know much about creation myths from around the world? And if so, do you have a favorite one or one that kind of resonates with you?
That's a good question. None that I could really talk about. I'm familiar with a fair few in passing from like having read them in books years ago and having read about them in general, say on Wikipedia and stuff, but nothing that I would say I was really familiar with, like really conversant with enough to speak about.
There is one... Okay, now I am going to tread on some pretty sensitive topics here, so just we all need to bear this in mind and pull me up here, Bill, if you need to. But I was watching Crash Course Mythology, and they did an episode, or at least some of the episode was dedicated to Native American creation myths. And now, so I don't know I don't know who this creation myth is a tribute to. I can't remember. But one group of people have this really nice myth that gives agency to nature. And I want to be careful here because I think very often people, when they talk about Native Americans, they always be all like, they're all in tune with nature, they're all peaceful and things like that, and kind of paint them as this overly simplistic Pocahontas style, we love the trees sort of people when they're just as complex as everyone else.
I watched Pocahontas for the first time a few weeks ago, actually.
Oh, the CG is really good on it.
I don't remember there being. It was the storm scene at the start CGI.
No, that was meant to be a joke about the Cameron's Pocahontas, as in CG, and
Oh, as in Avatar.
As in Avatar, because it's just
Okay.
Pocahontas.
Okay, cool.
We'll get back to Pocahontas in a second, but yeah.
Okay.
So so I don't want to paint Native Americans as being just nature loving and nothing else, because I imagine that's not true. But given that they had a much healthier relationship to the land than Europeans had, it didn't shock me that their creation myths would involve a lot more nature. And this particular one, I can't remember the details, but I remember I still have this image of like animals were like real characters in it, and they were the ones that like kind of drove the plot of this creation myth, and they had like personalities, and it was really like a real good feel good sort of thing, as opposed to sort of the more Western things where it's a lot of kind of doom and gloom. This one was, I don't know, it seemed to come from a different literary tradition, and it was really, really interesting and a really brilliant story as well. Like, I found myself really engaged. So I'll put the links in the show notes to that episode of Crash Course, and you go check it out. Cool. In general, the mythology section on Crash Course is very, very good, and makes for really good world building fodder. So that could be in links as well.
Great.
But yeah, Pocahontas. What do you think of Pocahontas?
It was alright, yeah. See, I haven't seen a lot of the Disney films. Like, I didn't see a lot of them as a kid, for whatever reason. So I've watched a good few recently. I'm going to assume that Pocahontas is probably quite racist, just because it's an animated movie, and I think Disney probably doesn't have a great track record of faithfully presenting other cultures.
No.
But yeah, no, it was a pretty entertaining story. John is an absolute, well, I can't really say any of these words in the podcast. He's a horrible character. He's a really horrible character. And he kind of gets, just sort of gets redeemed, I guess. I like the villain. The villain is very entertaining, and he has a really good song about mining and blowing stuff up for gold and things. It's I think that's my favorite song in it.
Man, those early Disney films, they can be difficult to watch from a modern perspective sometimes. Yeah, my favorite example of kind of just real like not great gender politics in Disney films, and I appreciate it's of a different time, so it was a different standard back then. But in Beauty and the Beast, when Gaston like espouses the virtues of being all manly, and how it's just so incredibly on the nose. Like, it's just like, it's not even, there's no attempt made to like shy away from this message. It's just very much like, I man, you woman, we mate now. And it's like,
I love Gaston's song, the one where he's in the pub.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite songs of all time.
It's such a good song.
It's so over the top as well. Like, it's so massively over the top. It's amazing.
I actually quite like Beauty and the Beast.
The animated film.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do as well. It's just there's bits you have to wade through where you're kind of like, oh, it's not 2018. I have to remember this. But
and there's a bit with really bad CGI in it. The bit where Belle and the Beast dance in the ballroom, they're hand drawn, and the ballroom is CGI'd, and it's a horrible clash.
It's awful.
It's like a really, really stark clash. And I know like they have to do that kind of thing to get through the sort of the awkward teenage years of computer graphics.
Yeah.
They had to make those experiments to get better, but it has dated really badly.
Yeah, really, really badly. I like the live action version as well.
I've heard that's great. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's great.
I thought it was quite good. And if I remember correctly, I think they made the Gaston song in the pub funnier, which is which is great. Does this count as spoilers?
Does it deviate from the animated film?
Well, the lyric for the song deviates from the animated film, which I'm about to tell you.
I'm sure you can share a lyric from the song.
Okay. The bit that like cracked me up completely was You know, it's always no one X like Garçon.
Yeah.
And the line was, no one writes these endless refrains like Garçon. And I was just like, yes! Yes!
Who can make up these endless refrains like Gaston?
It was the funniest thing ever. So good, so good. Anyhow, this is not the Disney podcast. So yeah, do you have anything else to share, or shall we crack on to my video stuff?
No, I think that's everything. Sorry, I was clicking there because I thought I was clipping again. I think that's everything. That's what I've written for this week. A little bit more lore, or this month, a little bit more lore for Fasath and confirmation that Fasath is part of the Handwavia setting. Yes, along with Nlamo and the original episode I did where I detailed the different planets and that.
Bill,
yes?
Bill, can I set you a challenge? It just popped into my head. Do you remember?
You can try.
I will try. Well, I'm going to put it out there. You can choose to accept it if you want. Do you remember we talked last time about the unreliable document?
Yes.
And how certain things could be redacted because of like damage or aging and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That got me thinking about like how many words one can spend in order to still create some sort of feeling about the world in which you're trying to convey. Like, as in, you write a big piece of prose, but 90% of it gets burnt in a fire. Could that still be valuable? Then I thought of, do you know there's a subreddit called, I think it's Nano Stories? I think that's what it's called. And the subreddit specializes in writing stories in as few words as possible. So I think it's something like 50 or 20 or 50, something like, in that order of magnitude anyways.
Flash fiction.
Was that what it's called? Flash fiction?
I've heard that term used as well, yeah.
Oh. So I was wondering, do you think you could be able to create a document from your world that has undergone significant like degradation with the ages, such that it is only like 50 words long, but still packs a punch, and we learn about Handwavia or Janspar?
That's interesting. I might try that.
I would be very, very intrigued.
Yeah.
That would be a really cool thing to do, because like I'm a minimalist. I love minimalism, and the idea of writing as little as possible with the best effect is very appealing to me, as opposed to like, here is a 2-page tome, as we've noted before. You know, that would be really cool. If that's something you want to pursue, that would be awesome. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I'll have a think about that. It reminds me of stuff that I've come across before. I think it was on a website that was like loads of writing tips and writing exercises, and it was mostly inspired by William Burroughs, I think. And one of the things that he used to do was he would write a section of prose, and then he would cut it up and rearrange it to get new structures and to get new turns of phrase, and kind of in his mind he was kind of exposing underlying possibilities in the text. Now it has to be borne in mind that he was eccentric in the extreme, to be diplomatic about it. But this was part of his technique. And if you read, for example, Naked Lunch, you can see that you have these recurring phrases, or these recurring bits of phrases that reappear in different combinations, which is quite interesting. Like there's something about someone's face smashing like a rotten cantaloupe, or someone wearing a gabardine overcoat. And then that gabardine overcoat like reappears, or it's like gabardine overcoat like a rotten cantaloupe, and there's things like that. So actually, that's not all that similar, but you know, it's the idea of like messing with the document itself. And another one of the things I thought this was really interesting was to try and make a piece of fiction, or like a compelling piece of writing, by creating sort of paratextual documents. Like, just create an index to a book, and what story can you tell with that? How much can you convey just through the table of contents?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. That man is eccentric. Jesus.
I don't know if that was necessarily one of his, but
Okay.
it was certainly on a website that was inspired by his ideas.
Okay.
If you heard a load of kind of like soft clapping sounds there, I was trying to catch a fly. I think I did actually catch it.
Oh, you went full Obama on it. Well done.
Well, it was less chill than him. It was more of a snatch, but I got it, which is the important thing.
It's hard to be as chill as Obama, you know. But what's called that's really interesting. That's like the idea of taking prose, cutting it up, and rearranging it. Like that reminds me of using like combinatorics in musical composition. You know, you'd have these cells of pitches, and you'd like rearrange and like take a block here and put it there. That's a really interesting way of doing it. Like, but it strikes me as just being inherently broken because at least in music, sound waves are the combining thread. But if you're going to tear apart grammar and rearrange it, like I don't see how that would work. But it's kind of interesting somebody would apply combinatorics to literature. Like that's a real fascinating idea.
Well, you still have editors, and you still have an editorial process of yourself that you can choose a combination that is particularly evocative or is particularly interesting.
That's fair.
But the more direct analog of the cut-up technique for music is to do it with like the physical medium, as in tape, in a music concrete kind of way.
Oh yeah.
And this was explicitly, I was actually reading about this yesterday, this was explicitly a thing that the Beatles did for parts of Sgt. Pepper.
It's probably Sgt. Pepper, to be fair.
For the benefit of Mr. Kite, has a bit that's like all these marches, kind of brass marches cut up and reassembled. So you get the sensation of it, but without like a kind of a musical context. And then I think for Day in the Life, there's a bit that has a cut up technique in it as well. Yeah. Man,
this is a conversation that only two people who study the liberal arts can have. Like, combinatorics, the connection between combinatorics in literature and musical composition, like that right there is a really dry academic essay waiting to happen.
That doesn't sound dry. That sounds class.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Academic essays can be both class and dry at the same time.
Fair enough.
The two are not mutually exclusive. Anyhow, shall we crack on?
Let's crack on into your stuff.
All right. So, as always, my world building came in the form of video making, and slightly new plan. Just to pull back the curtain here a little bit. We don't know how this is going to play out yet, myself and Bill. But I would like to do a podcast after every video release. Because I always have a whole bunch of things I want to talk about based on what Artifexi has said about the video, and I'm always like, damn, we should be recording now and we should get that on tape, and people can listen to it and learn from it. So I'm kind of trying to move in that direction, and we just need to see whether or not it works with Bill's schedule and things like that. But just a heads up of what's going on. Mm-hmm. In any case, I released a video yesterday night called Fantasy Maps and Plate Tectonics. And there's a couple of things I'd like to talk about.
Cool.
Number one, TLDR for the video. It's pretty self-explanatory. I create a map using plate tectonics and trying to show people what plate tectonics are, what sort of features one can expect, and how to create land masses around it. I gotta say, this video has been an astounding success. Not view-wise, because my view count is still relatively low, given that I shot myself in the foot by taking a year off. But in terms of comments, there's always a handful of comments being like, you got this wrong, this isn't exactly correct. Hardly any of that this time. I think there was one maybe. Everyone else was kind of like, yes, oh my god! So it's really nice. It's really good. Anyhow, so one of the patrons on the YouTube channel's Patreon asked about plate sizes, right? Like, how big or small could plates get on a planet? Now, I have no answer for this, and I haven't been able to find an answer, but the captain is currently studying geology. Cool. I talked to her a little bit. Now, she would be at pains to stress that she's not a geologist yet, so her word is definitely not law. But both of us kind of, after mulling it over, kind of came to the conclusion that plates can be as big or small as as whatever you want. We couldn't think of anything that would limit the size of it. Like, you know, imagine you take an eggshell and you smash it. Like, it could smash in, you know, if it was lucky, you could smash into two like very even big plates, or it could fracture into like hundreds of smaller ones. I don't think there's any law guiding it. So I suppose just to bring that up, and also if someone wants to correct me on that, I would, I'd like to know about it. But it makes intuitive sense, yeah?
I'm trying to take this to a sort of an extreme and imagine that you have, like, something the size of, say, the Pacific plate. And, you know, so, okay, say you have an area the size of the Pacific plate on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
That is a bunch of smaller plates. Could the rest of the planet be one plate?
I mean, maybe not. But that's not really a question of size. That's a question of, like, orientation. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a question of...
No, because you could orient that in any way.
No, but what I mean is, imagine you had, like, the Pacific plate, and that's been fractured into many small ones. Right. And then encasing that is one singular plate. My gut is telling me that just, like, my intuitive feeling of stresses would mean that singular plate that's kind of encasing the smaller plates would somehow crack down the middle.
Exactly. Exactly. So, right. So there is a size relative to the planet problem.
Yeah, fair enough. But then if we take it to a much bigger planet, you can get a much bigger plate. So I don't think there's any...
Oh, of course, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I don't think there's any law that says that a plate can only ever be X size.
There's probably some, like, proportion to the you know, actual planet that it's on that it becomes implausible at.
Perhaps. I can't imagine there would be much literature written about this, because, I mean, real scientists probably don't care about that. Given that they'd be much more interested in studying the tectonics we see as opposed to, like, hypothetical tectonics. But, like, functionally, though, I suppose the deal clencher on this is that I think it doesn't really matter. I think the question is an interesting one, but it has no real significance to the world building process, because if you do go down the plate route with your maps, if you split it up like Earth, like 7 to 8 major plates and such, they'll kind of naturally fall into what would be considered sort of a decent size. Do you know what I mean?
Say that again?
If you're going to go extreme and try and split your planet into 2 plates, then we bump into the idea of maybe these plates are too big, perhaps. But if you do an Earth thing and say, all right, my planet has like 7 plates, like Earth, you're naturally going to have so many plates such that the sizes won't be a problem. Do you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting question, but functionally, I think it doesn't affect the mapping process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up was I had an idea, Bill. I've had another one of Edgar's crazy ideas.
Oh, goody.
I think people who write fantasy novels, I think they need to pay more attention to their map projections. Because I don't know if this is a thing that people really care about. But, like, the more I look into map projections, the more I think about them, the more I realize that the projection itself could help tell people something about a world. Because every projection is used for a different thing. You know, like, some projection will be really good for, like, say, aerial navigation, because they'll show, like, they will show the, like, great arcs as straight lines. So, like, the path an airplane will take on, say, Mercator is going to be bent looking, but on, I think they're called azimuthal projections, they're going to be straight lines, and, you know, people who fly planes will use those sort of projections, that sort of jazz. Like, that can tell about a world. Like, if you're running an aviation setting, put in an azimuthal projection of your world. If you're running, like, a seafaring thing, put in a projection that people who sail the seas would actually use.
Yeah, like Mercator.
Yeah, is Mercator the one that is used for seas?
Headings are straight lines on Mercator. So, like, I think, going northeast will be a straight line on Mercator.
Okay, cool. So I think, and I don't think this is a thing that is actually done in fantasy literature. I think people just draw maps on a blank piece of paper and...
I think that's one useful kind of addition to telling a story. But, if we're thinking of typical medieval fantasy, when they didn't have very good maps, then it makes sense to not really think that much about the projection.
And man, that was going to be my second point. I was going to be like, only do this if your tech level is high enough. But then I still think my point still holds, because if you look at, say, Game of Thrones, for example, like that map is not of medieval tech level. Like if you compare it to the sort of maps that were created in medieval times, it looks like Google Earth in comparison. So I still think people are kind of like, I need to draw a pretty looking map. And I think a lot of focus in fantasy cartography is on making a thing look pretty. As opposed to A, making it be an artifact of the world, and B, making it be a tool of the world. Like, as in, like, people would actually use this tool. And I just think that's something people need to think about, as opposed to kind of like, how do I make the prettiest looking map?
Yeah.
And you're a good case in point for this, because remember you did your, way back, you did the soldiers sketched a thing. And like, I think using your words, it's not the prettiest map, because it's done by someone on horseback, I seem to remember. So it's not going to have like various Photoshop filters on it, because, that's not a thing. And
the expedition's actual cartographer died.
Yeah. I love that, man. Why does your map not look good? The expedition's actual cartographer died.
Yeah, he did.
Imagine just like an out of context statement on like r/imaginary maps. Man, your map looks weak. Yeah, but the expedition's actual cartographer died.
What do you expect? Brian did his best. Come on.
Oh, it's so good. But yeah, I think people need to think more about it. And I'm really, the more I think about it, the more I'm rallying against pretty cartography. It has its place. I totally get it. And I think all the tutorials you see on YouTube of people making really beautiful looking maps, they totally do have their place. But I still think like story needs to drive the overall arc of the thing. Is my idea. And the final point that was brought up in the comments below the video, which I think is pertinent for all of Artifexi to hear, is the concept of old mountains. I didn't really touch on this explicitly in the video. I implicitly talked about it in showing my map. But I talked about how at convergent plate boundaries, mountains are created. And when these plates become no longer convergent, like reverse direction, which blew my mind can actually happen. Plates can just like turn around, or I think rather rotate and go back the other way. If they cease to be convergent, these mountains will erode with time and become low-lying mountains, like the Appalachians. The Appalachians, I believe, once formed were like as big as the Himalayas, but like obviously no new mountains are being created, so they erode away.
But they're right in the middle of a plate, aren't they? Because they're in the middle of the American plate, which goes from the west coast to the center of the Atlantic.
Well, they're not in the middle. They're on the east side.
Yeah, so you've got across America, and then you've got a big chunk of the Atlantic.
Right. But like at one time, America was bashing up into Africa. Right. So like when they were bashing up against Africa, the place where the Appalachians are would have been near or on the boundary of the convergence.
Okay, and on everything that's under the Atlantic now is material that has been created since then by the divergence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, Africa and America colliding would have driven them up, and then they rolled it away. So, I think just for a little bit extra added realism for your cartography, it's worth thinking about once you've laid out your landmasses, going, okay, so these are like splitting apart. Were they at one stage in contact? If so, mountains would have formed, but they would have eroded away. So maybe make low-lying mountains at those points. And I kind of, if you look at the map in the video, links in the show notes, you kind of see that like surrounding the divergent edges are slightly more elevated to kind of hint at that. Lots of people talk about how the need to simulate many billions of years of plate tectonics in their cartography. I think that's enough. Lay out your continents, figure out where your mountain ranges are going to be relative based on your plates, and then just go, where might they have came from, put some old mountains there. I don't think you need to go back and figure out exactly where everything was and all the places where old mountains would exist over time and things like that. So I think that's an important thing to note. Just a little extra thing that takes no time to do, but adds a little bit of more geological history to your map.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
That makes sense.
Cool. That is all the points I have on fantasy cartography.
I have a question about the video.
Oh yes, sorry, go for it.
So you have all the different types of boundaries. You've got the convergent boundaries, and the divergent boundaries, and the transform boundaries. And there's oceanic transform boundaries, and there's continental transform boundaries. Yeah. Now you explain why there's no such thing as an oceanic continental divergence boundary, but why is there no such thing as an oceanic continental transform boundary?
Okay, so I didn't explain this in the video because I couldn't find a good reason why not.
Okay.
It may be, and any geologists out there, please contact me because I do actually want to know. It may be a case that we don't observe them on Earth, but they may well exist. Intuitively, I kind of think that if you have like a oceanic continental transform boundary, I would imagine, given the densities of the plates, that even though they are grinding up against one another, the denser one will still want to subduct and functionally form kind of like a weak convergent boundary. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
But that is complete speculation on my part. I have no clue, and I couldn't find anything to back that up. And again, because real scientists are not world builders, they're not interested in this hypothetical thing. They're interested in explaining what we see on Earth, and we don't see these in any meaningful way. So does that answer the question somewhat?
I think it does. My other question is, are like continental and oceanic plates actually taxonomically different plates, or is it just? I mean, like, for example, the East African Rift Valley.
Yes.
Like, that plate on the eastern half of it, I can't remember what it's called, is largely under the Indian Ocean. So is it just a plate that has a bit that's oceanic and a bit that's continental? Like, is it just plates can have different thicknesses at various points rather than being fundamentally different things?
Okay, yeah, so the stuff... Okay, so I suppose to clarify, no plate is going to be entirely continental and entirely oceanic.
Right.
That's a problem that fantasy cartographers have. You highlight the East African Rift Valley, and that's a good point. Like, it is predominantly oceanic, but you have that sliver that's continental. So there can be a mixture.
Yeah.
They're like they are taxonomically different in the sense that like the continental part of a plate will be made up of fundamentally different rock. Like it's made out of granites and things like that. I mentioned in the video that this felsic. And that is a name for a family of rock, granite being the most common, and they are like by definition less dense. And then the oceanic plates are more dense, and they're made out of like they're mafic compositions. I think it's basalt. I said in the video, so that you will get like they're fundamentally different, comprised of different things.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, my knowledge on this is like literally 100% of my knowledge is what's contained in that video, and outside of that, I'm not a geologist and I don't really understand it very well. But yeah, so do you have any other questions?
No, I think that answers it all.
Cool. Right, that was my world building, and that was your world building. Shall we crack into the green room?
Those were our world buildings. Yes, let's go to the green room.
How are you for time? You said you need to be done by 12.
I don't today, as it turns out.
Okay.
I'm not going to work. So.
Oh, cool.
I'm not going to my first job.
Okay, so I'm not going to hold you up much longer, but it's good to know we got a bit of time. All right. Important piece of green room business, Bill, we need to attend to. And that is the Artifexi-census that I forgot from the last episode, and I'm really sorry. So I'm going to bring it up here. Good. The results are in. We got in the order of about 130 replies to the form.
130?
Yeah, which isn't bad. It's not bad.
Not bad.
That's quite good. I messed up severely, though, in setting up the form. Because what I should have done is I should have just copy and pasted a list of all the countries in the world and put it into the form. Instead, I was just kind of like, what country do you come from? And oh my God, have I learned that people are very specific about the type of countries they come from. We had many, many variations on Scotland, Wales, England, United Kingdom, and I had to just lump them all together. I'm really sorry, Scottish and Welsh people, because I know, but the map, it'll be in the show notes, the map that the Google Sheets provides does not treat Wales and Scotland as separate entities. I know, it's flawed. I'm sorry. But I wanted to show the data on a map. So, and
I'm
then
not happy about that.
You what?
I'm not happy about that.
I think you need to write a strongly worded letter of complaint to Google.
I mean, you could have used a different map.
It's a graph function on the sheets.
You're using some kind of preset thing, okay.
Yeah, where it just takes the data and color codes, it makes a heat map basically on the world, but it doesn't distinguish Wales and Scotland. I'm with you, man. They're separate countries, like, clearly.
Does it recognize Kosovo?
Does it we didn't get any from Kosovo, so I'm
going to lean really close to my computer screen here. Enhance.
Enhance, like CSI.
That's it, exactly. Or like the old Blade Runner computer game, for anyone who can remember that. I don't think it does have Kosovo.
Do you know what I find is often...
Oh, no, it does. It does, I think. Yeah, it does. Cool.
Do you know what's often a sticking point in, we're about to get political here, people. I'm sorry. In quizzes of the world, there's various different quizzes of the world. Like, they show you a map, you input all the countries, try and answer in 15 minutes, that sort of jazz. But depending on the website, they pick different countries. And there's a bit of a sticking point always as to whether or not Palestine is considered a country. That has led to many a furious argument in comments below these quizzes, being like, this is not on, and that sort of jazz. It's a difficult thing when it comes to people's patriotism and things like that. But in any case, and then as well, we had a lot of people, we had so many variations on the United States of America. We had people writing the United States of America, the US, the States, USA. We had people write Merca. There was someone who wrote something or other that when I downloaded it into my Word document, it scrambled and became a whole load of nonsense letters, but retained the word Merca, so they got counted. It was very, very funny. And then we had one person from Sweden who wrote 3 variations of the word Sweden, which I believe is the English version, the Swedish version, and then something else, and I don't know. But they got
there's a number of I was reading about this the other day. There's 6 recognized minority languages in Sweden.
Right, so there's a couple of them. So it was very fun to go through this. I'm glad it was only in quotes 130, because if it had been a lot more, I'd been like, oh god, I might need to retake the census. But anyhow, we got to a result, and unsurprisingly, it was dominated by the US. Again, links in the show notes to the charts. But a few surprising things. New Zealand. Right? New Zealanders have put in a good show. New Zealanders are top 6. They're the sixth place. And,
bad.
Per head of capita, that's not bad at all, because there aren't as many people in New Zealand as, the United Kingdom and things like that, but yet they're really high up on the chart. I thought that was really good. People in China, which is class, and also Nigeria, Malaysia, and Israel kind of surprised me a little bit. Mainly because I usually think that, who outside of the States and Ireland listens to this podcast, but apparently people do. And we have representation on every continent in the world, barring Antarctica.
Very nice.
But that was kind of cool. I had a lot of fun.
Uruguay? Sweet.
We got some Uruguay action going on there, which is really good. Nigeria really surprises me. I would have... the South Africa, I would have been like, okay, I can see that. But Nigeria, that's very interesting.
How come?
I don't know. Just because, I don't know. It's not usually a country that pops up in the metrics an awful lot on YouTube.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what the weirdest one ever was? I remember getting views from North Korea on my channel. Now, I don't know how this works. I don't know if it's a glitch. The only thing I can think of is that somehow some VPN found a way to bounce its signal off something North Korea related. I don't know, but like I'd severely doubt that there are actual North Koreans watching my videos. But it was fun to see North Korea light up a little bit on the little the YouTube map. And it's like, hey, that's really interesting. But yeah, so go to the show notes and check out the Artifexi map and the results of the Artifexi-census. Thank you to everyone who signed up and left their countries. It was really fun. It was really fun doing that. And no shock, United States on top, then United Kingdom, then Canada. There are your top 3.
Ireland didn't even make the top 5. Only 3 listeners in Ireland.
Yeah. Germany, New Zealand, and Sweden betted out, which is shocking bad. Testament again to the fact that you do not make stuff on the internet for your immediate surroundings, and given that everyone in Ireland knows everyone else, they're effectively all just family members, and you don't make stuff for your family members. It's for the wider world. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So again, go check out the show notes. And have a look at where all you people live. So that's all I have for the green room. Have you got anything that's been going on in your life?
Have I got anything that's been going on in my life? I went to Amsterdam.
Hang on. Well, before Amsterdam, did you survive the snowpocalypse?
I survived both of them. The main one and the smaller one this weekend. The
Beast from the East and the Beast from the East 2. For the listeners, we had a lot of snow here. Like objectively a lot. Like I was talking to Zidnaf and I told him about the amount of snow that had fallen. He was like, yeah, that's enough to actually cause problems where we are as well. It's not just, a country that doesn't expect snow gets a little bit of snow.
Doesn't he live in Colorado?
What?
Doesn't he live in Colorado?
Yeah, but the Colorado's elevation is really high.
Yeah, so I would have thought they would be very used to snow.
Right. But like, so from a person who is very used to snow, saying that you had a couple of feet of the stuff would still not cause alarm on their part, but kind of like, yes, that is an inconvenience. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to like normal Irish way of dealing with snow where you get a slight dusting of it and then the country grinds to a halt and everyone else laughs at it because you're kind of like, that's not snow. What are you talking about? Zidnaf was like, no, that is a solid amount of snow. Congratulations.
See, I don't have a TV or anything and I don't listen to the radio or anything, so I didn't really heed the warning because I was just seeing people worry about it on social media and that. So I was like, oh, okay, there's going to be snow, whatever. And I expected it to be the usual light dusting. And then I was stuck in my flat for 4 days. I mean, I was able to leave to go to town, to go into town because I live in a town. But there was nowhere to go. There was nothing to do.
Yeah. There was no food in Lidl near us, our supermarket. All fresh food had been hoarded. The captain went for a shop and sent me a picture of the veg aisle, and I think it had something like one lowly cauliflower head sitting in the entire veg aisle. All the bread had been sold out. It was actually a little bit crazy. Like, it was mental.
I luckily I had enough food in, and I did a little bit of shopping the day before, the Tuesday, which was the day, like the night that it hit was Tuesday night. But I decided, well, if it's going to be like snowed in for a few days, then it would be foolish to start eating the food now. So this is a perfect excuse to get a pizza. So I got a pizza.
Nice.
And I had made like a couple of stir fries and stuff that I had lying in the fridge anyway. So I got through it okay.
There's 4 takeaway shops around the corner from me, and they had the ingenious idea of staying open throughout the snowpocalypse. Because they all live just above the takeaway, so there's no commuting.
Yes, then it's fine, yeah.
Yeah, and then they must have made an absolute killing from people who were just kind of like, I have no food, but I could walk 2 minutes down the road to pick up food. Like, they must have made a fortune. So yeah, anyhow, Amsterdam. You were in Amsterdam?
Yeah.
No way. Well, how come? Just holiday?
Just for a holiday, yeah. Me and 2 friends from school.
Did you go? Wait, hang on. Were you in Amsterdam for metal gigs?
No.
Oh, interesting. First time in Amsterdam?
First time I've been to Amsterdam. Yeah, first time I've been to the Netherlands at all.
Okay, now hang on. For the where's the thing? We have a listener from the Netherlands.
One listener in the Netherlands.
So, bearing that person in mind, thumbs up or thumbs down to Amsterdam.
It was a cool place, and I would go back.
In-depth review. Jesus.
Well, you said thumbs up or thumbs down,
Yeah,
so I gave a brief response.
That is entirely fair. What's cost like? Because myself and the captain are looking at going somewhere in September, and we're very conscious about pricing and things like that. And we've kind of written off a good chunk of Europe because of cost.
It's fairly expensive. Like it'd be probably like Dublin expensive.
Oh, that's not good.
No, it's expensive like that. And we stayed in an Airbnb, so it was a little bit pricier than if we'd stayed in a hostel, but not as pricey as if we'd stayed in a hotel.
Yeah.
What did I do there? I
went to museums.
I drank some tasty beers. I wandered around. It's a very pretty city.
Yeah.
Like all the old kind of 1600s and 1700s kind of areas. Yes, I went to 2 very good museums. I went to the Maritime Museum. Yeah, in which I saw loads of stuff. I went to an exhibition all about whales.
Oh, cool.
And the relationship between humanity and whales throughout history. That was class.
Any interesting tidbits that you've learned that you want to share?
Specifically about whales.
Specifically about the relationship between humanity and whales over the years.
Well, that they were considered as monsters for a long time, and now they're seen as sort of like cuddly and fluffy, and you can get toys of them, which would have been unthinkable in the 1600s.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, like naturally, because surely there must have been some fear that whales would like sink boats and things like that. So
exactly, yeah.
Huh.
And they have a replica of an East Indiaman from the 1600s. Oh no, from the. Actually, I think it is from the 1600s. Yeah, the VOC Amsterdam. So you can go up in the ship and go all around it and see how sailors lived and stuff. That was great. You know me and ships and things.
Wait, so hang on, like a life-size replica of the thing that you can just go around and explore?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's cool. That
That's
appeals to the sky pirate ophile that I am.
They have the actual royal barge used by the Dutch royal family is in a shed there. You can go in and look at it.
Do the Netherlands still have a royal family?
They do, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think is it Queen Beatrice is the Queen? Sorry to our one Dutch listener if I got that wrong.
Who is Queen Beatrice? And it's like, damn you, Bill!
Oh no, Queen Beatrix resigned. Oh, she abdicated. I didn't realise that. Oh, cool. So it's currently King Willem Alexander. Looks like.
It's a solid name. One of my middle names.
Willem.
Or Wilhelm, but like it's the same thing.
This is the Dutch version of it.
Yeah.
Edgar Bill is your name.
Oh, I have Bill in my name.
You do.
Oh,
you do.
That's a little bit cool.
So that was great. And then they also had a big exhibition about navigational instruments and one about maps.
Yes.
Yeah, so I really liked the maps one. Obviously. The navigational instruments one was funny because they had like the sextant and what that did and the astrolabe and all these different things and what they did. And they mentioned that the longitude was a big problem, how to calculate longitude. Because latitude, handy out. All you have to do is look at the sun and take the angle. Absolutely handy. Mm-hmm. But calculating longitude, very, very difficult. And of course it was the chronometers invented in England in the 1700s that solved that problem. But the Dutch and the English were huge rivals at that point in history. And when I was in England last year, I saw like 3 different things about clocks and timekeeping, 3 different exhibits. And all of them made a big deal, especially the one in Greenwich, made a big deal about the invention of the chronometer and the solution to the longitude problem. And here in the Maritime Museum in Amsterdam, it was literally just a paragraph on a case. It was like, then the longitude problem was solved.
Do you know how it was solved? Do you know what's the tech needed to measure longitude?
An extremely accurate clock, which wasn't affected by being moved around and wasn't affected by heat and changes in temperature. And so what you did was you set that to the time of your home port. So you set that to London or whatever. And then when you were away, you would take the local noon and you would see what the difference between local noon and noon on the chronometer was, because you would have the accurate time to your home port. And then you could calculate what distance you had travelled around the world.
That's interesting. That seems like it seems like a no-brainer sort of solution. As often so many advancements are there, like they're really simple when you think of it.
No, like the solution was always obvious, but it was just making a good enough clock.
Okay, I see. Do you know what this reminds me of? In
Only Fools and Horses.
No. What? Okay. Was that just a random guess?
No, because at the end of the series of Only Fools and Horses, of the original long run of the series back in the late 90s or whatever, they find a chronometer. Oh no,
not Only Fools and Horses. I never got into that program. No, it reminds me of flat earthers, right? I have been watching way too many flat earth videos because through looking at plate tectonics, I and thinking about them hypothetically and stuff, I inadvertently made my way down the flat earth rabbit hole because I obviously on YouTube all the metadata is somewhat similar and sort of jazz, and I can't help but watch it because it's it's almost like a want to be sadistic to yourself. You're just kind of I'm just going to watch it and feel terrible about the world. And it's like I was watching these things and I was just like, but so many of your arguments, just if they were true, literally so much of what we know about the world would not exist. And this idea about the chronometer and taking the time of local noon and things like that and calculating the sun's angle, if it was a flat world, it's literally not going to do that. So in order to accept this flat earth hypothesis that you push so hard, and there's a huge community of people pushing it, it's we have to we have to ignore all of maritime innovations, and it's it just drives me nuts. It's awful, and it drives me nuts as well because at some stage I'd like to do a flat earth video, and it's I don't like that they've spoilt it for us that are doing it in a good manner. I'm doing it in a sort of fun hypothetical thought experiment. But now I feel bad about even trying to publish a flat earth video because someone will come along and might be all see, proof. And I'm no, you see, what you've done there is you've just completely misunderstood reality. So anyhow, when you were describing about all that sort of, it reminded me of that. And I feel like just turning around and being all just go to that museum and look at the chronometer. Just do that. And then tell me about
the chronometer was faked by NASA, you see.
Yes. Do you know what my favorite thing is? Gravity doesn't exist. In order for their...
It does, Edgar.
Thanks, Bill. I was confused there. But in order for their hypotheses to work, they have to dismiss gravity. And they just dismiss it. They just kind of go, look, we believe gravity doesn't exist. But that's not a model of the world. That's fitting... That's only cherry picking. I realize I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's cherry picking the stuff that confirms your theory about the world, and it's just it drives me nuts. And then
you start with the conclusion and work backwards.
Yeah, exactly, which is not what you should be doing. And then their thing about they accept that everything else around us is spherical, Mars is spherical. The sun is spherical, but the Earth isn't, and it's just it's just the most broken chain of logic. It's so infuriating. It's just sorry, it's awful. Anyhow, Amsterdam.
It's not great. So that was the Maritime Museum. That was pretty sweet. And the other one that I went to was the Van Gogh Museum.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that. Kind of a dick in his early work. Yeah.
I mean, okay, all right, this is another one of Edgar's controversial takes here. I think part of being a borderline genius creative person almost invariably means that you're a bit of a dick.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I get that, but this, like, is stuff I hadn't seen before. He has all this early work, which is, like, paintings of peasants, and he really idealized the peasant lifestyle and being so close to the earth, and he thought it was, more noble and more true and stuff, which is, first of all, really patronizing and really classist, because he was, like, from a middle-class family, and, he was supported by his family for most of his life. And there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself, but, to have that and say, oh, but the peasants, they have the real life. That kind of rubbed me a bit the wrong way. And then he has this famous painting, which I hadn't seen before, called The Potato Eaters, which is a painting of a peasant meal, and it's totally different to the stuff he's famous for. It's earlier, and it's way more like it's like way like pre-impressionist stuff.
Oh, I know it. I know it.
You know the painting?
Yeah.
And,
my father was a massive Van Gogh fan.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of his work through all the books that my father bought and things like that. And I remember as a young kid being really surprised, being like, when did Van Gogh go a little bit crazy? Like, when did he adopt his kind of more impressionistic style? Because it was mad baby Edgar seeing the more traditional work of his youth and then the more kind of like out there work of his later years. But yes, I'm aware of the Potato Eaters.
Yeah, and like they're like caricatures. They're given these kind of like grotesque, exaggerated features, and I don't know, just something really rubbed it the wrong way. Something really rubbed me the wrong way about it. Then his later stuff I like a lot, and I kind of I don't know. I feel like I'm quite ignorant about art a lot of the time, but I got a lot out of the trip. But the best thing I saw wasn't by Van Gogh. It was a sculpture by a French sculptor. I'll get his name here now. Jules Dalou, or Jules Dalou, I don't know how you pronounce it. And it was part of the museum about Van Gogh's early influences. And it was a sculpture called Tall Peasant, and it was like a life-size bronze sculpture of like a middle-aged man who had like clearly been working all his life, and it just had incredible detail on it. So yeah, deadly sculptor that if you're interested in art, you should look up.
Oh wow, yeah.
Did you look up that one?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, well, this is called Peasant by Jules Deleuve. Let me see, Tall Peasant.
Is it a man standing with arms crossed?
He's rolling up his sleeve.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Yeah. Yeah, the work, again, I know nothing really about art, but the work around the clothing is really good.
Yes.
Like, that's really detailed.
It's incredible, isn't it? And his arms, if you get up close to him, like his arms are like the veins are done in incredible detail, and his face is amazing, and his fingernails are in incredible detail.
Do you want to know an interesting story about me that I may not have told you?
Yeah, please.
I once moonlighted as a bronze sculpturist.
What?
Yeah. Like, legitimately. So a little bit of bragging here, and I'm really sorry. When I was younger, I won a national art competition.
Yeah.
For a painting, right, that I have yet to get back from the Texaco company.
Man, that's gone.
Yeah, I know. Texaco just hoard these
They sold it. They sold it, and they used the funds to murder union leaders in the third world.
Yeah, probably. I feel ashamed for contributing to this. Texaco were like the sponsors of this art competition. In any case, so I won this thing for my age group. I think it was like 15 or whatever, and I got a couple of £100 out of it. And I put that money into making a bronze sculpture of a clay thing that I had done in art class. So I spent, I think, the entirety of one summer effectively living, not sleeping, but spending all my days at this kind of like artist commune up north in the county where I live, learning how to work with bronze and things like that. And it was really, really cool. It was a really fun time. And I had a hand in doing everything. Like some of the more like intricate stuff like I didn't do, but I was given a chance to like help pour the bronze. I was given a chance to do some welding, like making of all the casts. I helped out the main artist dude, like running little errands for him and things like that, and doing more of the menial work. So it was really cool. I felt like a real kind of like apprentice, like artisan. It was really cool.
Sweet.
I believe that sculpture still exists. It is embarrassingly, it's a sculpture of a pig that is sitting in a wooden basket, and the wooden basket is smashed, and the pig is all like dumped out on the floor, and he has a big embarrassed look on his face because he broke the basket.
That sounds amazing.
It's not exactly high art, nor is it.
That sounds great.
No, the sculpture itself. Like the sculpture itself isn't great because like I went in there and was like, I'd like to do the bronze thing. I have this thing. I'll do that. And then the guy was like the main artist guy was like, okay, yeah, you can do that. But he kind of sensed that like I wasn't a sort of farm sort of person, and he was kind of like, this isn't really your shtick, is it though? And I was like, not really. And he was like, okay, I'll tell you what. You make the pig, and then in your spare time, let's have a go at making a wax sculpture of something that you actually really like, and we'll turn that into bronze too. And the thing I really liked was it was basically a demon arising out of a lava pool, and I made that into a bronze sculpture as well. So yeah, that's my moonlighting as a sculptor. And
a demon arising out of a lava pool.
A demon, like a very, very angsty teenager. Because again, I was like 15 at the time. Yeah. And then in a sad turn of events,
was this before or after you played in a thrash metal band?
This was, I would say, during.
Of course it was.
Probably during. Yeah, I needed to create an idol to bring to our gigs. I don't know, man. But then in a sad turn of events, how the way it all ended, really badly actually, was that the artist commune was shut down because of lots and lots and lots of asbestos.
Oh, Jesus.
And they all had to abandon, and they just it just didn't exist anymore. And then most of them died in a horrific car accident.
Oh God.
So it was real kind of like the universe has it in for them, so to speak. They just like it was all fun and games, and then just like life went terrible. So yeah, which is kind of mad. But the guy I worked for was insanely gifted. Like his sculptures were amazing, and his shtick was he did animal stuff, but they were really modern takes on animals. Like it wasn't trying to like replicate. Make it a photoreal version of animal. It would like be these abstract animals, but his shtick was that he hated anything that looked handmade. So like it's like some sculptors will deliberately put in like fingerprints and gouge marks to make it look like it's been crafted by a human. But he was like he sought like almost Apple level of kind of simplicity of form, and he would make like these elephants that were effectively just giant spheres made out of bronze, and there was not like a single imperfection on the surface. It was like meticulously crafted and beautifully shined and polished, and it was amazing. Like his name was Damien, and he had a huge bearing on my aesthetic tastes now. Like I really like minimalism largely because of Damien. So yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm going on too long. That was my story. We go back to Amsterdam.
No, dude, that was class. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, it's not something that comes up in conversation very often. But yeah, so overall enjoyed Amsterdam, yeah?
I did, yeah. And I went to some music as well. I went to see the Concertgebouw Orchestra.
These are...
Oh, they're like a huge orchestra. Like really world class in Amsterdam.
Okay, cool. What were they playing?
They did the Shostakovich Second Violin Concerto.
Okay.
And Stravinsky's Firebird. So,
very nice.
A very sad Russian program.
Is there anything else other than sad Russian music?
German music.
I like sad German music.
There's German music that's not just sad, but kind of bombastic and sad, I'm sure.
There is. Mahler helps with that. Sorry, classical music podcast here. Jesus. Here, this is probably not going to make the show because this is turned into a lengthy green room. But just the thing I wanted to talk about. Did you watch Adam Neely's newest video?
The interview one or the Irrational Time Signatures one?
Irrational Time Signatures.
Yeah.
That is the single greatest explanation of irrational time signatures I have ever heard.
I guess.
It's like succinct, to the point, like really simple. Literally anyone, even if you're not a musician, can understand it and completely demystifies it. Because, like, admittedly, I didn't understand irrational time signatures until I watched that video. Because I had only seen them in the context of this British composer, for the listeners, called Brian Ferneyhoo. And he had a way of dealing with them as metric modulations, like as different times, like different. They acted in different temporal spaces, and that was really confusing. But then when the Adam Neely video came down, it was just basically like, take a whole note, divide it into 12 parts. There you go. You have a 12 base thing. And I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. That is brilliant. I thought it was really good. I'm really am for succinct instructional videos, and that was one of them. I thought it was fantastic.
He make good content.
He does. He could do with less gig vlogs, but you can't have everything in the world.
So I think that's the majority of my trip to Amsterdam. It was a cool place, and I would like to go back. There's more museums I would like to go to. Cool. I would like to go there too at some stage. Again, given budgets involved, I don't think it's going to be a holiday destination this year. But we'll see. Okay, that was an extremely lengthy green room. Do you want to wrap it up? Yeah. Do you want to cover any of the things you have in the show notes there?
No, that I've covered everything.
Cool.
Okay. Okay. So, Bill, I will see you next video.
You certainly will.
So that could be 2 weeks, could be 3 weeks, could be a month. I don't know. And I look forward to it. And I look forward to seeing all of Artifexi again. Until next time, Edgar out.